Good morning. It's Tom and Kathryn Howard here with Dealing with the Howards, and we've got some really great information about building a valuable business today.
Yeah, we're talking about basically key positions in your company that are kind of required when you're selling your business, or just honestly required to have a valuable business in the first place. I had a friend of mine who he had a basically glorified bookkeeper in as the CFO. He was over $50 million in revenue. And I mean, private equity companies wouldn't take him seriously, especially when you're going to those meetings. They've got management meetings. They come in, they sit down with your key staff. They want to know, what they're thinking, what's going on, that kind of stuff. And the most important person when you're selling your business is that financial person. And so that if they're not on point and they don't know what they're doing, PE, that's their big thing, is finances. Mm-hmm. They're going to know right away. They're going to sniff it out, and they're going to realize, this isn't right. And one, they're going to realize that they are going to have to make a change when they purchase your company and get someone else in that spot. But also, they're going to start questioning your ability to run a business because they're going to see that that person has no idea what they're doing. It's one of the most critical positions in your entire company.
So not having the right people in these positions in your company, these critical positions outside of operations. Operations is very, very, very important.
Sales
but when
is important.
You're
operations
building a valuable business, these other positions are also equally as critical, you would say.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of them. Another guy, he was running over $30 million of revenue. He was selling. He didn't have an HR person. And private equity company came in and looked at it and said, you realize how big of a risk this is. Mm. I mean, they said, well, we got somebody that just, onboards, and they also are the bookkeeper. And that's good, right? And no, it's not. Mm-hmm. Like somebody that actually understands, human resources law and helps protect you and your business and make sure that things are going in line in your company. Mm-hmm. It's not like, Michael Scott from The Office. Most of the air conditioning and plumbing business owners I know, they just hate HR, right? Like I can't even, they're making jokes they probably shouldn't be making.
Yes,
they're saying,
we do.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I have been gone. She's laughing right now. I've been gone from Lee's for a few months.
We have a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, so I come to a meeting, and it's all the management staff, and
I am their fearless leader.
Yeah, the guy, operations manager's in there, and he basically cracked some joke that was totally inappropriate.
To the HR director.
Yeah, made the joke about the HR director.
To the HR director.
Yeah.
It wasn't about him or behind his back. He was in the meeting.
Yeah. And I was kind of shocked, and I looked over at the HR director waiting for him because I'm trying to empower people to make their own decisions in this meeting. So I want him to say, hey, that's inappropriate. We can't say that, blah, blah, blah. HR director turns around, swings right back, throws out an even more inappropriate comeback. I'm just blown away.
Welcome to Heating and Air.
Kathryn jumps on board by laughing her butt off. And I'm sitting there sweating. Team. I'm like, okay, guys. Afterwards, I had to step aside and say, hey, guys, all right, if you're not going to say it, I got to say it. We can't say these. We're a developed business at this point. We can't be doing those things. We have to raise our level of professionalism, blah, blah, blah. And Kathryn and the HR director and the head of operations were like, oh, okay. I mean,
and we took responsibility and we cleaned it up for a good 15 minutes or so.
Oh, my gosh.
Before it went downhill again. But yeah. I mean, they're operations, especially if you're working in heating, air, plumbing, electrical. It's a rough job out there. You're going to get some characters, that's for sure. It does bleed over into the office. We're a fun business. I had a friend recently who asked me, how's life in corporate America, Kathryn? And I was kind of confused at first. I don't work in corporate America. And I told him, I said, the only thing that corporate America and the trades have in common is that there's millions and billions of dollars coming through. But otherwise, we're having a whole lot more fun than corporate America, I think.
Well, that's why you need the HR person that keeps it under control. Because it only takes one comment to get sued, to ruin your reputation. to have you all over the news, it's just, and your whole, especially if you're going to sell your business potentially, one of those lawsuits ends the whole thing. Everyone just says, oh, they're definitely, if they don't walk away, they're definitely going to pay a lower multiple. And they're going to say, look, this is too big a risk. They could do things. There's a lot of ways to, they'll try to indemnify themselves against the lawsuit if they still buy your business, which means that basically you take the liability even after you sell your company for that portion of the lawsuit, or for that portion of the company for that lawsuit. There's a lot of things that can go sideways during that time period. So, well, let's talk about it a little bit. So let's say that you don't have these positions.
The CFO, the HR.
Because a lot of people, almost everyone has someone in finance, right?
And it's okay if you don't have these positions at $800,000 in revenue or $1 million in revenue annually, right? This is something, as you're building a valuable business, growing, that you need to add at a certain point. Actually, when would you recommend adding a director of HR or
so
a
if
CFO?
You're 5 to 10 million in revenue, that's the time where, at least in today's dollars, I don't know when people are going to be watching this podcast, but you really need to be looking like someone needs to be in charge of like HR. Everyone's going to have a finance person, a bookkeeper of some kind as they grow. But once you get past like the 7, 8, 9, 10 million, like you're going to need probably controller of some kind, which is a little bit like
someone with an accounting degree. Is that what you're saying?
100%. But like, you might need, even then, I can't stand it when people come in and say, well, my CPA oversees my books at the end of the year. Listen, your CPA, I very, very, very rarely meet a CPA that can run a business. They put things like your field salaries into overhead or your office salaries into cost of sale. They don't care because the net income's the same, so the taxes are still correct. And so like, why do you care? Blah, blah, blah. It's because I need to run a business. I need to forecast. I need to understand like how much gross revenue I'm going to have, how much my cost of sales is going to be, which tells me what my gross profit's going to be, and then how much my fixed expenses are. I know that my cost of sale is going to be variable, so I need to make sure my variable expenses are in variable expenses. I need to make sure my fixed expenses are in my fixed expenses. And then the most ridiculous thing when I ask them is this, are your financials correct? They say, well, yeah, my CPA does it. It's like, I don't care. Like, I very rarely see financials that come from a CPA that are actually correct. Probably, honestly, 1 out of 10. 1 out of 10.
How many have you seen? Give us an example.
I've probably seen 200 sets of financials.
And maybe 20 of them.
Maybe 20 of them are correct. And they'll do things like they'll put commission into overhead. And commission is, by definition, a variable expense. And they say it because it's GAAP approved, generally accepted accounting principles. And quite frankly, if you do that, you cannot forecast correctly in your business, guaranteed. Because your variable expense, your fixed expenses, your overhead will be variable. If this is going over your head, please reach out to somebody that knows what they're doing. There's a few accounting practices out there that are for the trades that can help, and get in there and say, hey, look,
I think our controller is taking on new clients.
Yeah.
I'll give him a little plug right there.
Yeah, it's Art Kirev. So anyway, we've got to find someone else to fill that position. But bottom line is that just because you have a CPA overseeing your books at the end of the year, that's a disaster for running your business. And quite frankly, if you don't know what these terms mean, when I start going into cost of sale, overhead, net profit, EBITDA, those kind of things, go enroll in a managerial accounting course at your local community college. It's probably going to cost you a couple $100. You're going to spend a few months in it. And if you've just been in the trades and you worked your way up in the trades, go do that, because you need to be able to question your accountant and say, why are we doing this? You don't need to be smarter at accounting than your accountant. Hopefully not. Hopefully you aren't, because that means you probably have a pretty terrible, no offense to you guys, but probably means you have a pretty terrible accountant. But you should be able to question and say, hey, why is this way? And you need to take ownership of that and say, look, I'm going to understand this. And quite frankly, if you ever go to sell your business, you need to be able to sit in those management meetings and know what you're talking about.
Or it decreases the value of your business.
Yeah.
So what's the point of being in business? We're serving people and all those great things, but you need to have a valuable business if it's going to sustain and you're going to be able to serve your customers and pay your employees in the long haul. We're talking for
Yeah.
20 or 30 more years. You need to build a valuable business. This is 2024 that we're in right now, and we're seeing huge shifts in our industry, and some businesses are becoming more valuable and some less valuable. So you need a controller critical position to have a
Yeah.
valuable
Now,
business.
keep in mind, everyone's going to say, well, I got a finance person, whatever. Like I said, my buddy had literally a glorified bookkeeper in there as his CFO, and he's doing tens and tens and tens of millions of revenue. And it just, oh my gosh, it was just shocking. This bookkeeper was basically just doing data entry. She was logging bills and expenses on top of each other, so she was double booking these expenses.
Yeah.
And no, she's booking the payment, and the bill is two separate things. So if it was like $1,000 bill came in, and then $1,000 payment, it would show up as $2,000 in costs on the financials.
Oh.
I was like, oh my gosh, all your costs are double. So, and she just had no idea.
Well, why would someone do this? Let's talk about it. Someone's
Well-
running a $50 million business. They have some sense in their head, we're going to assume. And now why do they have a glorified bookkeeper at a $50 million business?
Because he's incredibly good at technical stuff. He's incredibly good at sales, and he's that guy.
I think he was
incredibly
trying
good
to
at
save
marketing.
some money. I mean, I don't know him. I don't know what this is talking about.
He just
But
didn't
why
know
do
the
people
value.
not
He didn't
hire?
understand. He's
Why do
like-
people not hire the person that they need for HR? Why do they not hire the people that they need for accounting? Do they think that saving money on those positions is going to increase their net profit to increase their value of their business?
Well, he
Is
didn't
that a
know-
misconception?
He didn't know financials at all anyway, so he thought it was fine. He thought he was doing the right thing.
Okay.
And so when I had to sit down and talk to him, say, hey, look, here's all the problems. And by the way, when you go to sell your business, which was that year, by the way, you're going to get eaten alive by these private equity firms because this is a joke. Anyway, so he rectified it really quickly, got a good CFO. Additionally, so I would say you can get by with a controller or a senior level accountant for probably, your 5 to 10, 15, 20, up to 30 million revenue. Past 30 million revenue, you need a true CFO. And
Probably by 20, actually. So I worked
Maybe.
at the 2025 mark, and
Yeah.
we needed our controller.
yeah. Oh, yeah. The controller, yeah, for sure. But like an actual CFO position,
Okay.
yeah, you might want to get one at the 20 mark. You might want to get one at the 30. And there are differences. Just because someone has an accounting degree doesn't mean they're a CFO, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot. And we can go into those in a minute. But bottom line is that if you're underpaying those people,
Mm-hmm.
when you go to sell, the people coming in buying are going to look at what you're paying. And if they're under market value, let's say that you're paying them 100 and they should be 200, 250, 300K for a CFO potentially in some of these cases in some of these metropolitan areas. They're going to go and say, okay, if I have to pay 250 for somebody and they are 100, I'm going to take 150K off of your EBITDA because I
So
assume
it's
that I'm going to have
not
to pay that next
increasing
year.
your net to increase the value by not paying the critical positions that you need to have a valuable business.
Yeah, because
That's the
everyone's
key
going to look at
takeaway
it.
here.
Let's say that even yourself, let's say you're the owner and you're actually operating the business and you're paying yourself $3,000 a month, 36K a year to keep your expenses down. And you're like, oh, look how high my profit is. They're going to say, okay, well, we have to pay somebody 180K to run your position. So we're going to knock off 150K off your profit to account for having to pay somebody to replace you, even if we're paying you. So we're going to just knock that off your profit, knock it off the sale price of your business. And then same thing, HR, you just don't have one. They're like, well, we're going to have to hire one. So that one's going to be 150K or 120K.
Because it's a critical position to a valuable business of that size. Let's talk about the other way around too.
Yeah.
You have a valuable business. What if you've got an HR person, a controller making double what they should? What if you have any employees? What if you have managers who are grossly overpaid for the market value of their position? Maybe in your opinion as the business owner, you think that that's their value to you. But when someone else is coming in and evaluating and going to put a value on the business and you have overpaid employees for the market value of their position, what does that do?
Yeah, well, you might be able to get an add back to EBITDA and say, hey, your EBITDA should be a little bit higher because we're overpaying for this position. But the truth is that when they come in and actually buy it, they might give you that add back to get your profitability a little bit higher, make it happen. However, so what they're gonna do is they might give you the money back for that position on your profit and say, okay, if you overpaid a bunch of employees and you have about $300,000 in extra salaries that we wouldn't have to pay, we can add that back to EBITDA if they're honest with you and just tell you up front. However, what we're going to do is when they come in, they're probably going to terminate those employees because they're not going to want to demote them.
Nope.
And so you're not doing them a service by that point because they're losing their jobs. And they're not going to be able to get that price anywhere else either because that's not the value that people pay in your area for that position. So the best thing to do is try to figure out what market rates are, try to get a little bit above market rates to pay people so you're getting the best employees. Try to have better benefits and things like that, better culture, all that stuff to retain people. But grossly overpaying or grossly underpaying just doesn't work out when you're trying to build a valuable business for sale.
Yeah. And I'll say I've had to have a few of those really hard conversations with the employees at least, as a matter of fact. And I've retained all of the employees who I did have to reduce their pay because they were grossly overpaid the market value of that position. And I had to explain to them exactly what you said. Here's the position. Here's the market value. I'm more than willing to put you above market value at the tip top, but I can't have you double market value of the position because someone else comes in here, they will terminate you and replace you with someone in market value. Yeah. That's how business works.
I think some of those
sometimes you have to have those conversations with people.
Yeah, in your case, you had like one with a bad pay plan that was just like, it
it
had a variable comp pay plan that just was paying this person that was basically doing paperwork processing tens of thousands of dollars a month over
market value.
Nobody has saw it before when they were running the company. It's like, it's bad.
Yeah. Well, it was also part of the growth, because when this person, the way the pay plan was set up previously, when we had less revenue, she wasn't making as much, but when it went through and she was processing a little bit more paperwork, it did. So you have to watch those things. You have to know your pay plans. You have to understand your business, and you have to make sure that you have all of the critical positions filled at the correct salary rate if you want to have a valuable business.
Yeah.
For sure.
You got to get that going. And so now when we're looking with our position right now, Art's leaving and our controller, we had to look at, I even thought, well, we could do a lot of this stuff remotely, blah, blah, blah. And then I realized, no, when I go to, if I'm going to go sell the business, we have to have someone in-house. At least we can present well in those time periods and say, hey, this is the CFO. This is somebody that's really going to run the company and move forward and, help that private equity company that's looking to buy, get the warm and fuzzies thinking like, look, we're going to invest this money in this business and this is realistic that this is the payback we're going to get in the longer term.
It gives them the confidence in our value.
Yeah. You can't be going in there with a bunch of, hack together ideas on how to get your financials done.
Oh, well, you can. People that have.
Yeah.
You're just not going to be so valuable.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. You're not
there
gonna
are
get the
people
value
that have.
Yeah. So, if you don't have a service manager because you're being the owner and you're filling that spot and the service manager spot, if you don't, have, especially if you're above 5 million or so, and you don't have a service manager, if you're above 10 million, you don't have a GM.
If you've got all your employees on 1099.
Oh my gosh. Oh, don't
you might not have a valuable company.
At that point, you don't have employees.
Oh yeah.
You want to call them employees on 1099? They're not employees. There's just a lot of stuff like that you got to look out for and say, okay, I need to have a serious org chart that makes sense, that is scalable, so that our business can go forward in the future and continue to make money, whether I'm owning it or someone else is owning it, that I can still continue to serve my customers in the best way possible and not drive my employees into the ground trying to do 8 jobs at once to try to keep my costs down. It just doesn't make sense. If you have to do that in order to make money, then your business model is broken, you're not charging high enough prices, and you're not where you need to be.
You don't have a valuable business.
No. All right.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks
Appreciate
for joining
it.
us.